All right, we're going to take some notes on circles. Today is day 1 of conics, so 7.1a, circles. This is the standard form right here, equation for a circle, except for there is one mistake. This should be x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared, where HK, the ordered pair, represents the center for our circle, and R is our radius. So remember, the equation gives us R squared, so we will have to square root that in order to get just our radius. Here's a diagram over here that shows the circle. This circle is centered at the origin, which is 0, 0, and you can see the R is halfway from the distance from the center, and it measures halfway across the circle. The equation, if we look at this as a right triangle, x, y, and r, the radius, this equation for the circle centered at the origin kind of stems from the Pythagorean's theorem, because x squared plus y squared equals r squared, or in the Pythagorean's theorem, in a right triangle, a squared plus b squared, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So this is our general form of an equation of a circle when it is centered at the origin, or at the 0, 0 point. Okay, here's our first example. Remember, the standard form of an equation is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So in this particular example, it's just x squared plus y squared. So our center is at the origin, 0, 0. Then our radius we'll find by finding r squared equals 36. That means that if you square root both sides of this, r, the radius, has to equal 6. So then if you'd like to graph this equation, you start by graphing the center at 0, 0. Then a radius of 6. So I would go along the x-axis out to 6, up 6, left 6, and down 6. And then do your best to draw a circle with the radius of 6. So radius again is halfway across, r, radius, and then if you went all the way across the circle, that would be the diameter, which is double the radius. Okay, so we have graphed the circle, the center 0, 0, and a radius of 6. Next example. This example, the center, or the HK, will be 2, negative 1. Since our general equation is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared, our h and k values will always be opposite of what is inside the parentheses here, because it's minus h and minus k, both minus here. So x minus 2 is x minus h, and we have a plus for the y plus 1 because y minus a negative 1. So you can remember these hk values will always be opposite. The x, or the h and the k, will always be opposite of what's in the parentheses, which is similar to when we found like the vertex of the parabola that was hk, except for that the h was always opposite and the k was the same. So in the circles, both the h and the k is opposite. So our r squared in this example is 16, which means if we square root both sides, our radius of our circle is 4. So we have a center of 2, negative 1, and a radius of 4. So I'm going to start by graphing my center at 2, negative 1. So that's to the right 2, down 1. And then a radius of 4 means I'll go up 4, to the left 4, down 4, and to the right 4 from the center. And then I'll use those 4 points to draw my circle. So that's that full example there. Example 3 wants us to write the equation of the circle. This particular circle, if we zoom in here, we can see that it has a center of 0, 0. So that will be our HK. Will be at the origin, the center, 0, 0. Then if I look at the radius, I'm going to count 1, 2, 3. It's 3 from the center, so that is the radius, the distance from the center to a point on the circle. So I use that to plug it into my general equation, which was x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. Sorry, it's hard to write on here. So our center is 0, 0, so we're just going to have and our 0, 0, and our radius is 3. Since the center is 0, 0, it's just going to be x squared plus y squared, because h and k are both 0, equals r squared, and 3 squared will be 9. So that's the equation for this. Remember, any circle that is centered at the origin will always be in the form x squared plus y squared equals r squared, because hk is 0. Example 4 says write the equation with the circle of the circle with the center at negative 1, 3, and the radius is 7. So that means that the negative 1, 3 is my HK, and R is 7. So I have my general form, x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So x minus negative 1 will be x plus 1 squared plus y minus 3 squared equals 7 squared, which is 49. Example 5 says write the equation of the circle at the center at the origin and goes through the points 1, 4. So when it's centered at the origin, remember the equation of a circle will be x squared plus y squared equals r squared. They've given me another point, which means I know an xy coordinate along the circle. I can use that to solve for the radius, because that's the only thing I don't know. So if I plug in 1 for x and 4 for y, I can use that to solve for r squared. So 1 squared is 1 plus 4 squared is 16. And that's 17. R squared equals 17. So my answer will be, I'm going to zoom in and just write that over here. My final answer will be x squared plus y squared equals 17. Because I want it to equal r squared, so I don't even need to solve for r. Okay, write an equation of the circle with a center at 2, negative 3 and goes through the point 6, 3 is our last example. So our center, this is our HK, and this 6, 3 point, I'm going to rewrite that over here, that it goes through. That's just an XY point that's on my circle somewhere. So here I have to use my general form again, where my h is 2, so x minus h will be x minus 2 squared plus y minus k will be y minus -3, which is really y plus 3 squared equals r, whoops, delete that, I'm gonna have to move that, equals r squared. So again, I can use this x and this y to plug in here. So I have x is 6, 6 minus 2 squared. The goal is to solve for the r squared. 3 plus 3 squared equals r squared. So 6 minus 2 is 4, 4 squared plus 6 squared. So 4 squared is 16, 6 squared is 36, and 16 plus 36 will be 52. So r squared equals 52. So I'm gonna have to zoom in here so I can get the answer on. Final answer, plugging this all back in, will be x minus 2 squared plus y plus 3 squared equals 52. So my final answer is there in red. All right. That looks like that's the last example. So I'll box that answer there. Okay, if you have questions, let me know. Hope you liked my video on the iPad.